You get more out of life when you go out to a movie.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jack Emulsion, the executive producer in charge of all productions made here at Paramount.
We want people to know how important it is to find someone to fuck.
And before showing this picture, I felt I should at least explain.
I mean really fuck the living shit out of. If you can do that for 55 years, I guess you're doing something right.
The motion picture you're about to see isn't the run-of-the-mill film fare that has been presented to the movie-going public of late. We chose to make what you're about to see a film based on fun.
Mensch, die Kamera läuft ja schon. Ja, komm doch mal hierher.
And it's just a little different.
Ja, komm!
Insofar as there is no story and no plot.
So, haha. Jetzt warte mal. Wart mal, Bursche, jetzt wollen wir mal sehen. So.
That's right. I said no story, no plot.
Ach Mensch, Gisela, doch nicht auf die Blumen. Hierher, komm hierher. Ja, so.
It is actually a series of silly sequences.
Oh, jetzt kommt er. Jetzt kommt er. Lass mal Papa ran. Lass mal Papa ran.
Or you might say it is a visual diary in the life of a real nut.
Jetzt müsste er sein. Junge, 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 Junge. Ah, toll, was?
It's real silly. Oh, put it on! Show it to him! Put it on!
These four rooms, bright and iron and withered fumes, far below these sinful means.
Hey guys, welcome to the Dave Barron Show. So let me introduce you to yourselves. We got Mary joined, Jeff the joined, Brian the joined, Terry the joined, Bernadette the joined, and did I miss anyone? John the joined. Good to see all you guys. So I usually don't cover topical stuff, but let's talk about the coronavirus today, all right? And by the way, I appreciate someone who liked the show already, but by the way, if you could share the show, that helps out a whole lot more than liking the show. So if you could share the show, that's a lot better. But kind of you don't have to worry about doing that because when the show flips to its music show, I've got a promoter who's going to do all that for us. So kind of you guys don't have to worry about that now because this is just the preliminary before I roll over to that. I'm dressed today as a musician because I just did an interview with Jimmy Johnson. So it was kind of cool. So we're going to rock and roll with that. I always get people's names shortened and abbreviated, but so that's what we got going on. But coronavirus, I do have an update specifically from my family here, okay? All you guys know, or probably most of you know, that my wife's Japanese. She lived in Japan before I met her. I met her by living in Japan for almost 3 years that I was there. Her family of 9 brothers and sisters, that's not 9 and 9 equals 18. That's 9 combined. She's got a twin sister she keeps in really close contact with. I got an update from them by her sister calling her last night. The coronavirus in Japan, there was a line outside of wherever it is. I guess they're equivalent to CVS or wherever. A line of 1,000 people. Now, she lives in Tokyo, so you got to remember the population of Tokyo is extreme. It's like New York City on steroids, sort of. But the population in Japan, 1,000 people aligned to get masks. All right, so there are 1,000 people to get masks. And on top of that, my wife's family told me they have something called Golden Week. Golden Week is actually a time, it's not really a celebrated holiday. It's just a celebrated break time, not associated with a holiday. But it's called Golden Week. And I know it because when I worked in Japan, which is when I met my wife, I was working for Hitachi in Japan. Everyone takes off that week and they travel, whether they travel locally or internationally, they travel. They take off, all the companies are closed and they travel. It's kind of it's a mandated takeoff time where everyone gets the time to do what they want, all right? So everyone travels. Supposedly, there have been massive cancellations of flights. And another thing that they said is when you fly out of Japan and come back from Japan or from wherever you were, back into Japan, you've got a 2-week quarantine, a mandatory quarantine. I didn't read this on the line. I'm taking what my wife's twin sister told her. But there's a mandated quarantine time of 2 weeks to be isolated, and you have to spend the time in the hospital. So it was very interesting that they are taking this very seriously. Now, are they overreacting to it, or are they taking appropriate precautions so that they don't have to overreact to it in the future when this thing grasps hold of everyone to the point that we should have done things earlier and we just kind of let it go and took it for granted that it wasn't significant. And then it creeps up upon us being significant. I told you guys I was watching this TV series called The Last Ship, and the population, 90% of the population of the planet was like eliminated because of this virus. I forget what they called it, but it was a TV show, a weekly series called The Last Ship. And it was an interesting series, and I only watched it. I binge watched it about 3 months ago, and it was specifically on a similar topic. Will this become a pandemic? Is it already called a pandemic? I haven't read up on it a lot because I've kind of neglected it. I don't have a face mask. I've never worn a face mask. I'm not going out to buy face masks, except I guess my wife will, to send some overseas to Japan, all right? So I think she's going to take it more seriously than probably I will. But let's see if anyone said anything. Bernadette says, shit, I hope not. I'm going out of the country in April. So now I'm assuming, Bernadette, you're in the United States. When you go out of the country in April and come back, I don't think the United States has instilled quarantines on people coming back to the States. Supposedly they have in Japan. Like I said, this is what I heard from my wife's sister. I haven't validated it by looking at Japanese travel and seen any of that, so I haven't validated. I'm taking my wife's sister is legitimately honest, and of course she really is. Jeff says here, regular surgical mask won't help. They need to be the thicker respiratory type. That's interesting. I did not know that, so maybe I better look into that before I determine to send something to Japan to help out my wife's family, because I guess there's somewhat a degree of on a higher alert than maybe we are in the United States. I don't know how many cases they've got that popped up in Japan. Maybe I should have read that before I got online today. Mary says, I think travel should be put on hold for now. Precautions now can make a difference in containing the virus. According to a health professional, masks really don't work. There we go. There's something from Mary. So, let's see. We have a caller here. If this is a daytime gig, then I'll have to call them back. But let's see who this is. Hello, this is Dave. Can I help you? Hello?
Hey, Dave. This is Sparky. Just calling in with some comments.
Okay, great. So now did you join the show when it first started? So you heard my initial comments. Did you hear all that?
Yeah. In fact, I'm listening right now. I guess you have a delay.
Yeah.
I don't know how you pull this off. That's kind of cool. Anyway, I just had a few comments I wanted to make.
Okay, great.
So, do I talk now? Or
Oh, yeah. Go for it right now. What comments do you want to make? Because I know that you're really involved in studying this, analyzing it. Are you worried about it, by the way? Are you mildly worried before you go into your dialogue? Are you mildly, medium, or highly worried about this?
I don't think it serves any purpose to get scared or worried. I think the bottom line of what's important is to be prepared. I've been watching this thing since the very beginning, and these are just my comments. Some people agree with me, some people don't. I think that we are experiencing for the first time a very good example of biological warfare. I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it came from bats. I think it was released there in China. Hey, what better time to really disturb the economy of the United States? And look at that. Guess what? We have an election going on. So if you start putting everything together, it's pretty scary. Then, if you hark over and read about the Georgia Guidestones, and I won't go into that except for I think it's number one on there, is to have the world population down to 500 million people. Now, there's been a lot of chatter for a number of years of the quote powers that be, the Illuminati, leaders, whatever you want to refer to, or the Bilderbergers, maybe they're involved in that, of starting to call them world's population. And I think that there's a very good possibility that this may be a first step. Okay, so that's my thoughts. Okay, the other thing that I just really want to contribute this, because I don't see it hardly anywhere unless you pay any attention to any of the natural products or involved with people that are interested in alternative medicine. What you don't hear about is strengthening your immune system. Hey, guess what, folks? People have an immune system. Has it been forgotten? Yeah, with all this vaccine and the degradation of little children's immune systems because of being over vaccinated with all the aluminum and mercury, and it goes on and on and on. So my suggestion to people to think about it if they're interested and do their own research and do what they can to strengthen their own immune systems. A lot of good sleep, good clean food, and supplementation. Vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, elderberry is excellent, has been excellent for many, many years as something to take to fight against the flu. Now this one is this isn't just a normal flu, this is a little bit different enough to kill you. So I don't know how effective it is, but I'm taking it anyway. It's supposed to really help boost your immune system. Echinacea is another one. Another thing that I'm doing actually is a mushroom fence formula, and it has 5 different types of mushrooms in it. Of course, it's a powder, and each one has its own, particularly good properties. So I wanted to contribute that. I just think we have to be careful. What I'm a little concerned about is people really not taking it very seriously. I believe it's in all the continents in the world except for Antarctica. I heard that from a doctor that I listened to. So anyway, have any questions? Oh, and I want to know, now I noticed from something that you wrote, Dave, you're a vegetarian. Do you think vegetarianism really helps support the body better than being a meat eater?
I kind of stopped eating meat only because of my love for animals, and especially recently when our previous dog died, I started thinking about animals and the way we prepare them to be on our tables. And I used to go to this restaurant once in a while. I didn't go frequently, but it was called Fleming's. It's a restaurant in Arizona here. And you go there and you're sitting down with probably about 50 or 60 people, and they all have a piece of meat on their dish. So if you really added up all of that meat just in that one place setting, that one time I was there for that 40 minutes I was in the restaurant, 50 people there consuming a meat product seemed to be, oh my God, shouldn't this be kind of a rarity to eat it rather than just consuming an entire animal, or how many animals participated in that one place setting? So it kind of...
I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree 100%. I really do. In fact, most of my life I'm a vegetarian, non-vegetarian. But when I start eating meat again, I really don't eat a lot of it. And I actually myself feel better. So I just wanted to ask you first, because I was curious. I didn't want to feed any kind of information. Oh, there's something else I wanted to add to my little rant about what's going on is, I have been listening to a lot of people. There's a show, it's called Paranormal, P-A-R-A-B-N-O-R-M-A-L, with a guy, Jeremy Scott. And he's on the weekends, and you can look him up to get the times. And he puts some awesome shows out. Very, very good. Very credible. He's very smart, asks good questions, and he has very wonderful guests. And he's had a doctor on there a couple of times. And I believe it was on his show also where he had a pilot. And he said to the guy, he said, would you fly now? And the pilot said, well, actually, if you have any alternative ways of getting somewhere, I would suggest doing that. He said, planes are very, very dirty. Of course, we know that. And possibly, maybe the airlines are doing something to boost up the cleanliness of the planes. I really don't know. I myself, go to Alaska every year, and actually I haven't made my reservations because it seems like it's just kind of starting here now, and there's a whole lot going on in Washington now, and in Seattle they keep telling people don't go to work if you can work at home. And where do I get to fly into? Seattle. So I have all my travel plans for myself on hold, at this particular time. So,
wow, that's interesting.
Anyway, I hope I contributed something good today, and thank you for doing the show. And of course, I always enjoy your shows.
Well, let me ask you a question before you hang up. I'm curious about this. Do you think, like I said, my wife's twin sister in Japan called up. She's in a heightened alert state. Now, my wife's twin sister is an individual person that actually goes to the hospital every single month to be checked through thoroughly. I don't know why she's that hyperly worried, but actually they have a socialized health care in Japan. And my wife's twin sister, like I said, goes every single solitary month to get checked out. And obviously in the United States, we typically don't do that. In fact, our healthcare system and our health insurance only gives my wife and I every 6 months to go for a physical if we choose to do so. So do you think that the United States is taking this too lightly, and we should be?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I really do. I really do. I think so. In fact, I have a friend that puts trips together, and she's got a trip planned for a group of people in April. And I saw her last week, and I said, well, Judy, are you still going forth with your plan? She goes, oh, it's just the flu. People die from the flu all the time. They're not educating themselves. They're not paying attention. This isn't just the plain old flu. Just study it. I mean, I'm not going to try and sound like a doctor or anything like that. But, you can find out the information yourself. And as far as the mask, in fact, another guy that I was listening to who was very much in the know about this brought this up also. You read the CDC. CDC says, oh, well, don't wear a mask unless you're sick. The mask's not going to protect you. Okay, how come all the other people are wearing masks? And this guy said the same thing. And from what I can find out from the mask, there's certain types of masks that you're supposed to get. In fact, I actually ordered some a few weeks ago, and I already have them. And I ordered another individual one that was supposed to be really good, but I haven't gotten that yet. But this guy said, of course, it's going to help to some degree. In fact, even putting a cloth over your face, over your mouth and nose, is also going to help, because this is spread by the droplets and stuff. So if somebody sneezes, if you've got at least something on you, you're going to have a better chance of not catching it than catching it. It's just logical. And so I read somewhere else that the CDC was saying that because they didn't want people to panic and buy up all the masks. Then there wouldn't be any for the medical people, and most of the masks come from China. So bingo.
Yeah. And it's interesting. About 2 weeks ago, I met an individual I have some business association with. 2 weeks ago when I met her the first time, and I shook her hand. She shook my hand, and it was the polite introduction. It's typical. I met her 2 days ago, and when I met her, first of all, she said she went to the restroom to wash her hands before I came in because she wanted to be respectful to my health, and she did not want a handshake from me. And actually, she actually had on her table. She had in Arizona, we can grow all kinds of things because we have 300 plus days of sunshine. All you have to do is water stuff, and everything grows. So. In fact, in back of our house, we have an orange tree, we have a grapefruit tree, and a lemon tree. She had on her desk from her tree an orange. It looked like it was from a nuclear facility because it was so large. It was like a grapefruit in size. And she had that on her desk, and she was talking about it, and she said, but Dave, I'm showing you this, but please don't touch it to feel how large it is because, unfortunately, Dave, I don't want to be touched. So she was.
Well, no, I totally understand that when the H1N1 was going around, when SARS was going around, and all that kind of stuff, and basically it's flu season. When we have something that's really we know is actually out there that we can catch, my rule is no hugging, no kissing, no handshaking.
Wow, how about that? Now you did mention.
Yeah, and in fact, I started that a couple of weeks ago.
How about that? Okay, so it's interesting. Also, you mentioned the 500 million count of population. You spoke about that a bit, right? So now, by the way, do you think that it's funny, I live in Arizona, and when I go from Arizona to California, I go through some of these very unpopulated desert landscapes that obviously could have and support a population. Now, when I'm in New York City with the massive amounts of millions of people there, obviously it's very congested, it's overly packed, it's landlocked, you can't build because everything is already built up. Same as in parts of New Jersey and Philadelphia. So we have significant population in these major cities. We have unpopulated places in the middle of the desert if you chose to live there. But the world population, do you believe that we have too much population on the planet where we have to do something about it, not to minimize it to the 500 million mark, but do you think we have overpopulated the planet? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I can't honestly answer that, Dave, because I haven't traveled the world. I mean, if I'd really traveled a lot, I feel that I could give a reaction. Having said that, what I have noticed in traveling in some parts of the United States, like you said, there are so many places. You can go through Montana. Is a good example, and you can go for miles and never see a person.
Yeah.
I don't know if the world population is bigger than it should be. What I do feel, however, the problem is as you mentioned about New York, etc., it's the concentration of a population in particular areas instead of the population being really spread out.
Yeah, and that could be a problem. You were mentioning like airplanes, and of course airplanes have a significant risk of catching anything because of the claustrophobic closed environment. So when you talk about the population of cities like New York City, it's almost the same idea of a close packed amount of people in one area that are going to all obviously be able to spread something more rapidly than, of course, in these desert environments outside of Phoenix Metro where there's significantly less population, so less ability for particles in the air to travel from one person to another because the distance is quite far.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the same thing as I guess if we have to really try to consider how to quarantine this so that you can prevent the spread, I wonder if we start quarantining cities, if it becomes a... By the way, is it called a pandemic already? I haven't followed it enough. Is it a pandemic?
I believe so.
So
I think it depends upon who you talk to, who wants to scare people or who doesn't want to scare people. That's my opinion because I follow this fairly closely.
Yeah, so do you think
So,
that if...
let me throw one other little thing as far as something being very germ-ridden. Menus in restaurants. They have tested menus in restaurants, and you don't even want to know what's on those menus. So it's always I read this about 4 years ago. So I make it a habit. And I don't mean to sound like a germaphobe, but I really want to stay alive.
Yeah.
But if I'm in a restaurant, as soon as I'm finished done with the menu, they take them away. I go wash my hands.
Yeah, and it's interesting because yesterday, and I came online, I was talking about one of the interviews I went through, if you listen to that fiasco. But
Oh, yeah, I did, yeah.
So I went there to that interview in one of the state of Arizonas. I went there, and I went to the restroom, because you always go to the restroom to make sure you look good before an interview. So you go there, you tuck your shirt tail in and all that. But I went and I washed my hands, and I went to the towel vending machine, and it was the old-fashioned type where it wasn't the individual napkins on the counter. And it wasn't the thing where you put your hands under and the electronic detection of your hand propels the tissue out. You actually had to put your hand on a dial and spin it to get the towel out. And I thought, oh my God, here's a place where we're focusing our hands. Supposedly someone maybe hasn't washed their hands thoroughly enough, and they're putting the focus on the potential area of their hand, which is carrying disease, right on that location, on that dial. And that dial, to make it move, is not a round dial. It's got a catch point on it, which is going to catch where all of your fingers have been placed. So it was almost like I thought in my mind, because now I'm more conscious of it, that here's an area which should be addressed just in general.
Oh, totally. Well, I think maybe that's why they have some now. I know at the both of I go to two gyms, and both gyms that I go to, the towels, they're paper towels, and you hold your hand in front of the box the paper towels are in, and that causes the paper towel to come out, and then you can rip it off.
Yeah.
So then you had like a real old style one. Now I read some other articles saying, oh yeah, make sure if you're in a public restroom, you dry your hands on, at least air dry your hands. Well, there's been a whole bunch of studies. I don't know if it's totally proven or not, but a whole bunch of studies where people are saying that using those blowers, actually, if there's any bacteria on your hands, it blows it around the room.
Wow.
You can't win for losing.
Yep. You know what I hate about the restrooms? And this, I got to say, this is a comical approach to the restroom. By the way, it's not going to be adult, so don't worry about it. But you put your hands under the faucet, And they're mostly electrically validating. They got a hand. They detect, it's like a motion sensor thing. They detect your hand there, and then the water comes out. These things never work properly. I got to put my hand under that thing like 6 times before I get it to. And I've got a big hand. I'm a 6'4" guy. My hands are not small, and I'm putting them under there. It's like thinking I'm a little child with a 5-year-old hand and can't detect my hand. Before the water comes out, I got to put it under there like 5 times before I get the water flow to come out. And then it stops too quickly. You know, I want the water to flow out so I can wash my hands thoroughly, like one of these people that's overly worried about hands now and being clean. And then when you're, by the way, when you're finished washing your hands, what I do now is I get the towel first from the dispensing machine because I'm not sure if it's going to dispense properly or have an error in the system. So I get the towel first. I place it on the sink. I wash my hands. I dry my hands with a towel because now my hands are as clean as they could possibly be at that point. I grab the towel and I wash my hand. And then I open the door with the towel in my hand. With one that
I do that all the time. I've been doing that for years. If I go to a public restroom on my way out, I always take a paper towel that I've used, and then I open the door with it, and then I just stick it in my pocket, and then eventually throw it away.
Yes, I do that. I do that too. And you know, being in the public eye as I am, and going to visit some of the clients I visit, it is amazing when you still see that person. You still see a person that does not wash their hands at all.
And you were talking about those automatic faucets. You know what's kind of scary too is most of the airports, that's what they have, is the automatic faucets. And most people, I don't think, are going to sit there and stick their hands in over and over again to wash them, long enough and get them rinsed off. And my other complaint about that is the water is generally just cold to tepid. It's never warm enough. And I think about that. I think of my hand. I'm trying to wash my hands, and I can't even get, hot enough water that I feel will help disinfect my hands.
Yeah.
I'll throw that out, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes when I'm in these restrooms and the towel machine is like the one I discussed in Arizona when I went a couple days ago, or what was it, yesterday. Sometimes if the towel machine is like that, I'll just wipe my hands on my pants because I figure, well, at least I'm not touching that dirty towel machine, so I'm drying my hands on my pants. So
I've done that too. In fact, actually, what I've done is in situations like that, sometimes it's wintertime, I'll dry my hands on the inside of my jacket.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. So see, now people are becoming, it's funny now. What do I do when I meet someone and I don't shake their hands? Do I tell them the reason why and then expect them to understand that? Or then they're going to maybe think, here's a guy that's hyperly worried about the situation. What do you do?
I don't worry about it. I don't care what they think of me. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest. I'm trying to be safe. And I just say, well, it's nice to meet you. I'm not shaking hands due to the viruses in the air.
Yeah.
And I just say it like that and just leave it like that. And if they don't like it, tough.
Yeah.
I figure if they don't like it, they're going to laugh at me, then they're rather stupid.
Yeah.
So, what am I going to do?
Yeah, here's a little comic element about people that say nice to meet you. I've had some, and I don't do this with corporate people because then they'll think they don't want to talk to me and do business with me. But if I meet someone that's just kind of an interesting person and they say nice to meet you, I say, how do you know that? How do you really know it's nice to meet me? Because I could be your worst nightmare of a person, and you just met me for the first 2 seconds and you're saying nice to meet you. You could be.
Well, maybe at that particular moment, they thought you were nice, or maybe it was a lady like Terry that immediately fell in love with you because you were handsome, or they liked the tone of your voice, or whatever. So maybe there's little instances where at that particular time those words actually meant something.
Right. So there we go. That's what I say to them, just to catch them off guard. Sometimes I want to see the reaction of people. And then when they say, hi, Dave, in the morning, a lot of people say, they say, hi, Dave. And I say, no, not yet, not till tonight. I'll be high tonight. Right now, I'm not.
Okay, that's funny.
Right. I like to throw people off periodically. That's the type of guy I am, which obviously you guys sort of realize at this point, right?
Oh, yeah, I think we all know that. And David's part of your charm. It makes it fun. Well, if you don't have anything else to ask me, I should get off the phone, so leave the line open for someone else to call, because I'm sure that people have some really good things to contribute today, too.
Awesome. Thanks, Sparky, for calling up and sharing your comments about today's topic, the coronavirus.
Oh,
We
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
Hey, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, so let's see. Anyone else have anything to say? I was reading a couple things here online. Let me make sure I disconnect that phone. Okay. Let's see. I think somebody said that there was the last virus. Let me scroll up and see if I can see that. Jeff Banks says 575,400 people died from the pandemic swine flu. Swine flu. You remember that? How long ago was that? I had no idea that 500,000 people died of that swine flu. I forgot all about that. I didn't know that the statistic was that high. That seems pretty high. Of course, if you take the total world population and you come up with percentage of total population versus 500,000 people, and it's a significantly small number. But just on the standing of 500,000 people, I used to live in a city called Newark, Delaware, and I think the population of Newark, Delaware was 350,000. So if you think about 575,000 people, that's the entire city of Newark, Delaware being destroyed with no population remaining. So if you think of it that way, it's a high number. If you think of it of the total world population, it's a rather small number. Let's see, surgical masks are germ barriers. The N95 respirator is best for viral. That's what Jeff Banks says. And whenever I see N95, I think of, I'm from Philadelphia, so I think of 95 North. And then there's a 95 South. So if I see N95, I'm thinking of the highway. So let's see, anyone else got anything to say? And if not, I'm probably going to hang up pretty soon. But I was just curious if anyone called in and you could share your comments about the coronavirus. Are you worried about it? Are you overly worried about it? Do you think everyone is underly worried about it, especially in the United States? Sparky seem to think that we are not taking it seriously enough in the States. And to be honest with you, I haven't either. So let's take this call, probably from Terry. I think this is from Terry. Is this you?
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Jesus. I didn't think you were going to answer.
I'm going to answer.
Okay.
I'm putting my glasses on, by the way, just for you. Every time you call, I'm going to stick my glasses on. All right. So what do you want to say? Do you want to have a comment about the coronavirus? You're in Massachusetts, correct?
I am. And my boyfriend's a doctor.
And he's a doctor. Okay. So I'll tell you what. Go ahead. Tell me about what your Michael. His name's Michael, I believe. Correct?
Michael, yes.
Okay. What does he say about this?
He doesn't say very much about it. Now, I said to him, I went jogging yesterday. I jogged twice a week.
Did you wear a mask? Did you wear a mask when you jogged?
I don't wear a mask. I don't give a damn. Let it hit me. I don't care. But the thing that bothered me is that I can run 2 miles with no problem. You know, when I get home, I said, geez, I'm out of breath. And I really wasn't. My heart was beating a little bit faster than it normally does. And I had a cough. But last week I had strep throat and I was running a fever. So I was on an antibiotic. That could be the problem. I don't know. But I told Michael last night. And he said to me, well, you know, those are all the symptoms of the coronavirus. I said, oh, don't say that, Michael. He said, well, I'm not saying that you haven't. I mean, I'm just saying that those are the symptoms. Those are the symptoms that people have to watch for. Being out of breath, a cough, and I forget what else. There's one more thing.
Now,
maybe he said it and I don't remember.
Now, I think I did read. I think I did read somewhere that if you think you've got it, one of the quick self-tests, according to what I read, and it could be inaccurate, by the way, is to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Hold it for 10 seconds, and if you don't cough within that 10 seconds, you potentially don't have it because I guess your lungs would not be able to absorb that break of breathing, holding in the air that's currently in your lungs. So I kind of heard that. Breathe in for 10 seconds, hold your breath for 10 seconds, and if you don't cough, potentially you don't have the virus. Now, maybe you have the early symptoms of the virus. Maybe you got to do this on a daily basis. I'm not sure. But by the way, Jeff Banks says here, he says the percentage of the world's population that died in 2009 from H1N1 was 24%. So maybe we better start, because when I think about H1N1, it didn't affect my life. I don't even think about it now. It's kind of in the very back of my mind. It's like letters that mean nothing.
Right.
But if that's accurate, something that I didn't concern myself with, something I don't think about now, killed 24% of the population. Maybe we better take this more seriously than I do.
Well, I'll tell you, Dave, as soon as I heard that there was the coronavirus coming from China, I said, well, that's China's way to try to stop the population growth. And they're sending it worldwide. And I think other governments would cooperate. I really do. God forgive me for feeling this way, Dave, but I do. I feel this way.
Huh. Now you've been, by the way, you've been sick for a while, because I know you call the show up here pretty regularly.
I have been.
So
and I can't fight it.
It's been like 3
And
weeks,
I'm
I
not
think.
going to stay in the house, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to exercise, and I swim in my own pool every night. So I'm not going to stop doing what I do. But I have been sick.
Now people that walk
I haven't been
yeah.
sleeping well.
Wow. People that walking around how far are you away from Metro Boston? Are you pretty far away?
I'm 15 minutes right from Mass General Hospital. And that's probably the best hospital some people say in the world, but at least the country.
Okay, so
Massachusetts General.
do you on Boston News, when you're watching Boston News and you watch it, are they talking a lot about the corona?
Yes.
Of course they are talking a lot about it, right?
They talk about it, but not so much as Sparky was saying. They don't want to scare the population for sure. They want to educate them, but just for short little spurts at a time, Dave.
Yeah.
They don't want to scare people.
Yeah, when I watch the news in Phoenix, Arizona, which I don't watch enough, but when I do watch it, and they're taking, sometimes they'll have like festivals going on, because now Phoenix, this is the best time for festivals in Phoenix, because this is like our springtime before it becomes 120 degrees. So we got car shows. For instance, I go to car shows every weekend, so I can get Willie used to people and dogs in the car shows. So in fact, I'm going to go tomorrow. Every time I go to the car show, I don't see a single person with a mask on. And so I don't see it. I don't see the Phoenix population worried about it at all. Now, Phoenix is not that far from Washington State. So
Right.
maybe we should be a little more concerned, since I think one of the areas that Sparky brought up and that I read about is Washington State, with some of the things going on there. But I don't see a concern. I don't see a concern
Why
in
did you
Phoenix.
say that? Take the goddamn ear. Excuse me. Chrissy, I'm on the phone, honey. She has her earphones in her ears.
Oh, she
so
can't.
She yells.
She
to
can't.
me. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Dave, she said she's sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I can tell.
Okay.
I'm in a good mood today. I'm not in the mean mood I was yesterday. I'm in a better mood today. So
Well, that's not it.
so now you don't see
That's fine.
you don't see people walking around your neighborhood or Boston TV. You don't
No,
see a lot of people
I don't,
wearing.
and I said to Michael, are there people in Boston walking around with masks? Are there people in the Mass General walking around with masks?
Now, do you worry?
He said walking around with masks.
Now, when Michael comes to visit you in the evening, now Michael's come from the hospital. Michael's come from the hospital. The hospital is a place where people are there for a reason, because they're not healthy for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So
Exactly.
when he comes to visit you and he's not wearing a mask, correct?
Right.
And do you ask him if he's worn a mask during the day? And obviously he hasn't. So do you worry about that? Because he's coming from a closed environment, a hospital. So it's an isolated box of a facility with people that go there because they're sick. Are you worried about him coming into the house and contaminating
well, I
you?
said to him, because they have people in quarantine at the Mass General. I forget how many he said. The last time I heard was 6 people in quarantine. It doesn't mean that they've got the virus, but they've got the symptoms.
They've got the
So-
symptoms. Wow. So they've got the symptoms. He's there in the hospital, breathing the
Yes.
recirculated air because the hospitals, they don't have no one has a building now with windows that open. Hospitals, schools, the windows don't open, right? So now he's in the environment there, relying on the air conditioning system, which the air conditioning system, if we remember, a long time ago, created what? Legionnaire's disease or something like that. I remember air conditioners.
Legionnaires. Yes,
Right.
I remember that. Yes.
So now we've got the closed buildings with air conditioning dependent to relieve the contaminated air from this virus. And we got the air conditioners that cause the Legionnaire's disease, and we got closed environments. So I wonder if we're wrecking our lives. I wonder.
I wonder if we're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, but Michael said that they were told all doctors, emergency room doctors, which he is an emergency room doctor, should wear a mask.
Yeah.
So all of the masks are gone. They are gone. People are coming in and taking handfuls of masks and walking out.
I believe that could be true, right? They're trying to get their free mask, their
and
fix.
doctors and nurses themselves are taking masks and bringing them home.
Huh.
So Michael says, I don't have a mask to wear any longer.
Yep.
They've got to order more. He had to order more for his office, and this is the second time he's had to order more in a month for his office.
Yep.
You know, he has a private practice also. So the second time in a month, he's had to order masks. Remember, he said, I order them maybe once every 6 months. You know, and so, but when he comes in the house, he changes his clothes right away. Even his suits go into a plastic bag and to the cleaners the next day. And he warns the cleaners, I'm a doctor. You don't have to take these. You know, they've known him for a long time. And he washes his hands, puts on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. You know? And but I think he's just as scared as, I mean, he takes a shower and puts on shorts on his shirt. I mean, he's just as scared as everyone else, but that's his job.
Yeah. So now, you know what? If this blows over by the time Halloween comes out, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my Halloween costume. For this Halloween, this is what I'm going to do. You ever go to the, the places you work and they've got the water machines there? They got the big jug of water, must hold like 10 gallons, and you have to flip it over. It's real heavy to fill it up so you can fill up your water underneath of it.
I've got one of them in my house.
Okay, so you got that big container, right? It's a plastic container. I'm going to cut a hole in that so I can fit my head in it. I'm going to say Dave Darren's coronavirus mask. So I'm going to wear that big jug of water on the top of my head and go out dressed like that. It's going to be my Halloween
costume.
costume.
Good idea for us all.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah, I know. Jesus. Sparky had the good idea about wearing, what did you say, if you don't have a mask? Something
put a tissue or a towel or whatever on your face, right?
Yes, wrapped up and wrapped around your face, which I thought was a good idea.
Yeah.
But Dave, I don't worry. I'm 64 years old. I really don't have much more I'd like to do in my life.
Yeah, you do. You want to call my show every day. Come on now. You have several.
Well, that's true.
There you go.
You, Dave. I always want to be in Dave's space.
Right. See, I'm the one that's keeping you alive. I'm the one that's making your blood pressure rise, but I'm the one keeping you alive, right?
I have such perfect blood pressure. It doesn't rise. It really doesn't. It stays 100 over 60. No matter what I do.
100 over 60. That's too low, isn't it?
No, the doctor loves it. Are you kidding me?
100 over 60. You know what that means? That means I got to get you angry more, so I raise your blood pressure because it should be over 100. So just call into the show. I'll make you angry every day.
The bottom shouldn't be over 100. The top is 100.
Right.
And the bottom's 60.
Yeah.
If it went lower,
Wow.
And that there may be a little bit of worry, but it doesn't go higher. I have the blood pressure of a 16-year-old boy.
A 16-year-old boy. Why didn't you say? Why didn't you say a 16-year-old girl? Why would you describe yourself?
I don't know.
Why'd you say that?
Because they're stronger, I guess. I don't know why he said boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me get out of here for today and say goodbye to my audience. But thanks for calling in, Terry. Okay. Okay. Cheers. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So let's see. Any more comments? Illuminati. Illuminati Sphincter. I don't know who this is. It's not Sphincter, whatever it says. I'm not going to go close to the screen and read it, but evidently, I blocked this person. Like I said, I'm not going to block anyone that I'm not going to unblock anyone that I blocked before, because if I did block you, I blocked you for a reason. Either you were critiquing some of the other chatters on the site, or you called in. Whatever reason, I'm not going to reverse what I did initially. And like I said, I try not to censor people. But when my show at one point got blocked from Facebook because people complained about it falsely, they shouldn't have complained about it, because I have the right to have freedom of speech, and I discussed what I wanted to talk about. Suddenly I was blocked from Facebook for 7 days. So then I started thinking, you know what? If people are going to block me, I'm going to find out who blocked me, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to block them from chat, etc. But if Illuminati says that I blocked this person, then how could you be on chat right now? How could I be reading what you said if I blocked you? I don't know what you mean by that. Did I block your phone number? I don't think I blocked that many people's phone numbers yet. So I don't know what you mean by that. I blocked you. I don't see that as relevant, because I see what you're saying right now. How could I have blocked you when someone yesterday blew somebody, said I blocked them, but yet I'm reading your posts where you're complaining about being blocked, but I'm reading your posts. So I don't think you're blocked. So let me get out of here for today. This was the topic of coronavirus, and I'm out of here. We talked about 47 minutes. Dave Darren Show comes on live with the music format on 4/29. That's April 29th. And just today, I just finished. That's why I'm dressed like this. I just finished an interview. It was a great interview. I'll tell you who's coming up. If I can click the right button. Sometimes Macs are a pain in the asses. I just had Jimmy Richardson's on. Richardson, not an S on the end. Jimmy Richardson, he's a great musician. You got to check this guy out. He's a tremendous guitar player. I had Terry Hart on, Space Girl. She's already been recorded on the show. We're going to do I'm going to play that live interview for you, and hopefully she'll be online during the time that I'm playing what she recorded already, so you can ask her questions and Jimmy Richardson questions as well. So we're going to have a lot of activity when it comes back to the music show. Don't forget, it's 4/29. And I'll tell you guys about it. I'll be doing promotions at a variety of times. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for joining the show, and cheers.
Oh, hello. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jack Emulsion, the executive producer in charge of all productions made here at Paramount.
We want people to know how important it is to find someone to fuck.
And before showing this picture, I felt I should at least explain.
I mean, really fuck the living shit out of. If you can do that for 55 years, I guess you're doing something right.
The motion picture you're about to see isn't the run-of-the-mill film fare that has been presented to the movie-going public of late. We chose to make what you're about to see a film based on fun.
Mensch, die Kamera läuft ja schon. Ja, komm doch mal hierher.
And it's just a little different.
Ja, komm.
Insofar as there is no story and no plot.
So, haha. Jetzt warte mal. Wart mal, Bursche, jetzt wollen wir mal sehen. So.
That's right. I said no story, no plot.
Ach Mensch, Gisela, doch nicht auf die Blumen. Hierher. Komm hierher. Ja, so.
It is actually a series of silly sequences.
Oh, jetzt kommt er. Jetzt kommt er. Lass mal Papa ran. Lass mal Papa ran.
Or you might say it is a visual diary in the life of a real nut.
Jetzt müsste er sein. Junge.
It's real silly. Oh, put it on! Show it to him! Put it on!
In the throes of these four rooms, bright and iron with Bobby loves
What I have to breathe, my oxygen is draining. Blood bottle runs to me, races so rapidly. Tense my aggression, retaliate, catastrophe. You suck all the life from me. You take everything I need. You want everything but me, my heart's not breaking. You suck all the air I breathe. You take all the blood I bleed. You want everything but me. I'd rather be alone to fall down upon your throne. Games that you play, I don't even wanna keep the score. Taste of your nausea, scene of what I don't believe. Tense my aggression, my jugular restraining. You suck all the life from me. You take everything I need. You want everything but me, my heart's not breaking. You suck all the air I breathe. You take all the blood I bleed. You want everything but me. You're taking, you're taking, you're taking, you're taking. You're bringing me straight down.
Shed all the light from me. You take what you want from me. Use what I have to breathe. My oxygen is raining. Blood that runs through me races so rapidly. Tense my aggression.
Retaliate, catastrophe. You suck all the life from me. You take everything I need. You want everything but me, my